Join me in welcoming Andy Baldwin. Hey, Andy, how you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks. How are you?
Absolutely doing good. So, first off, tell us a little bit about you and how you show up in the world.
How I show up in the world? Well, I've practiced law for about 40 years. I've been writing for about 10 or 15. Um, and I live in the Rocky Mountain West, and I also fly a little Cessna 172 for fun.
Oh, that does sound like fun. So, you live in the kind of canyony old cowboy movie part of the Southwest. Is that kind of where you live?
Well, no, I'm kind of north of that in the Rockies.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but I've spent a lot of time down in Canyonlands, which is just a little above the Four Corners region. Very red rock country. Hmm.
I love it. All right. So, the book that we're talking about today, of several that you have, is called Moonshine Mesa. And it is a really fun, entertaining tale. It's in Native American country and set in some of that area we were just talking about. Tell us a little bit of the plot. What is Moonshine Mesa about?
Well, it features a character named Relic, who is in five other novels of mine. He's a moonshining hermit in Canyonlands National Park. It's very remote, beautiful desert country, high cliffs, canyons. There's a lot of history, especially Pueblo history down in that area. So there are ruins, petroglyphs, pictographs, um, all in that area. Anyway, Relic is, as I say, a hermit who makes some money moonshining, and this is set on Moonshine Mesa, which is an area. It's fictional, but it's an area where moonshiners during Prohibition used to set up their stills. And so Relic is sort of a relic of that era, and is wandering around there, and he finds, uh, oddly enough, he finds honeybees and lying dead and in a row, and then he finds a dead crow, and then he finds a dead human, and he's got to figure out what the heck's going on in this area that could possibly cause that. And the main character is a fellow whose educational career has gotten a little sidetracked when his sister passed away. But he's working for a law firm in Colorado, and they have an old oil field in Canyonlands, and there's something fishy going on in the old oil field, and so he has to he ends up pairing up with Relic, and the two of them have to figure out what's going on and put a stop to it.
The book has so many cool things. I mean, it has some conspiracies in it, has some psychological thriller elements, some mystery and crime mystery stuff. I mean, I was going through, just full transparency when I was looking at categories and I was like, well, it could actually fit in that one too. Well, and it could be in that one too. It really is a very fun book. So, why is it? I mean, through all of your books, I've begun to have this question in my mind. And the question is this: how is it that Relic is a hermit and yet he still keeps getting himself into these things every single time?
Yeah, that's he seems to find trouble. It's part of his character. Uh, but one of the things he's doing out there is watching out and watching over some of these old places to make sure they don't get destroyed. Some of the historic places, the Pueblo areas, and so forth. Um, so that's the other part of his character, um, and his. So that's why he's out there. And there's almost always somebody else out there who's creating problems, and he's gets tangled up in that.
It's such a beautiful part of the country. I mean, if we were just looking at it purely as tourists, And yet it's also one of the more untamed, if you will, parts of America still. Would you classify it as that being a good description of it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there are more and more people that find it every year, but it's quite remote. Um, I've done a lot of canoeing and whitewater rafting all through that area, Green River, Colorado River, the tributaries along the way. And you can get back in there and you step out, you could canoe for a week, and you step out of your canoe and you just pick a canyon and you go up it, and you'll be amazed at what you can find up there. You could be walking along and it's as quiet as the moon, and you think you're the only human on the planet, and you walk and you come around a corner, and there's a granary or a petroglyph, and you realize people were farming this area, irrigating it, 1,000 years ago. So it's really a fascinating country, and it's a great place to get away from all of the high rises that I can see in the background of your video this morning.
Very, very different from where I actually live, but I do like the books in the background. So,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
so let's talk a little bit specifically about Moonshine Mesa. So, Relic is pretty much the only "quote unquote" moonshiner that's there. Heck, these days moonshine's even pretty well legal. But you know, has he ever found himself questioning whether he should stay in that area, or is it just as much home to him as some neighborhood in some city as to other people?
Yeah, for him, that country is hand in glove. He knows where to find water. He knows what he can eat out there and what he can't. But he still, has a little still and needs a little cash from time to time. And but otherwise, he's exploring around, and he does some. He's also a bit of a rock climber, so he does some rappelling and climbing in that country as well. So he's just at home there. That's his home.
Is that an area? I mean, I know there's parts close to there where people still do a lot of panning for gold. Is that one of those areas that is like that as well?
No, I don't see a lot of gold panners out there now. Um, there's a stretch along the San Juan that historically there was a failed effort to extract gold down in that country, but no, it's not. It's not much of a gold panning area. That tends to be more in the mountain streams.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit more detail about the book without giving away anything because people need to get and read the book. So, Relic, and what's the other guy's name? I'm not even sure if you said.
Yeah, the other main character is Parker.
So are Relic and Parker, um, you know, are they as baffled about what's going on, or do they have kind of a working theory when they start into investigating it?
They both start off baffled by it all. Um, but it's pretty, it turns out to be a pretty high stakes deal. Um, there's something like $55 million grant on the line to the people who are behaving badly. And so they have a pretty strong investment in seeing it through. But they have to figure out what is killing these bees and crows and now people, because there are no outward signs. For example, the death itself, there's no sign of a struggle. It's not gunfire. It's not it's poison, but probably not. And they have to figure it out as the story goes along.
Of course, in that area, when you see something like that, the first thing you think of is a rattlesnake.
Right, but it's not that. Yeah.
So, this is one of 5 or 6 books that Relic is is in. Give us just kind of an overview of all of the books for somebody who maybe wants to read the whole series.
Yeah, they all involve some sort of a mystery to be solved. They're all set in Canyonlands. They all have a lot of action in terms of adventure and where people are going. Um, some are set in. One is a whitewater trip involving I can't remember, dozen or so guests, um, and an old diamond stash that's there from a diamond heist in the 1950s, and what happens when all these various characters on the rafts realize that there's a diamond stash, and there's essentially a race to get to the diamonds. Wings Over Ghost Creek involves an archaeological scam. There are, unfortunately, sadly, there's a black market in certain archaeological artifacts of the Southwest, and they run across a scheme that's got a different take on that crime, on how to commit it and how to hide it. And so is an archaeology class out there, and the main character runs into that and has to deal with that. Raptor Canyon involves a swindle, a land deal swindle. An attorney goes in and essentially takes advantage of an older guy who's of Raptor Canyon, and is essentially going to turn it into a theme park. And one of the minor mysteries in it is whether the petroglyph of the dinosaur is real or not. And that's Raptor Canyon. So they all involve the locale of Canyonlands and that kind of environment. A mystery, a lot of action. They're high stakes, and bad actors that need to be, disclosed and overcome.
Absolutely. And then just so that the girls don't feel left out, you also now have your other book, Antidote, which has a female lead in it.
Yes, well, and so does Broken In, which is a relic. Broken In, I didn't mention the theme of that, but that's a journalism reporter who has lost her mother recently and is assigned to a small town in the Canyonlands area. And there is an old inn, an old hotel that's being refurbished, but something else is going on at that what I call Broken Inn, rundown place, and she uncovers that. So, there are female protagonists. In the Antidote, the protagonist is a young woman who is studying botany under a professor who has discovered properties of a certain plant that's pretty common out in the West, called a chokecherry bush, and it could provide part of the antidote for climate change. And so when that's discovered, the professor who's discovered it is killed in the very beginning, and the protagonist, the young woman, has to flee from the murderer and joins up with a couple of old guys in an old Chevy, and they flee across the country as these guys are chasing. And there's a couple of secrets between the old guys too that come out in the end. So.
I love that. So what's next? I mean, is Relic, do you have another adventure of his kind of running through your mind, or where you think you're going to go next?
Well, I do. It's kind of hard not to have a Relic adventure in your head at all times. But I've just finished up one. I'm tentatively calling it Against the Wind. And it also has a female protagonist who is she's a student pilot, and she's in a foster home, and she misses her granddad, who's way up in Spokane. She's down in Phoenix. and she decides she's going to take her instructor's airplane and go live with her grandpa. And so she does that. She's flying an old antique Aranca airplane and across country, and she meets up with a quantum physicist who has developed the latest technology for quantum computing, which is, of course, on the horizon for all of us. And in that case, the Russians who've been watching our development and our advances in quantum computing are after this physicist and the young lady pilot who's flying them both all across some pretty rugged country from Phoenix up to Spokane. So that's what I'm working on now.
Well, that one sounds like a lot of fun too. So, just to kind of finish things off, let's let people know that they can actually get Moonshine Mesa today for free on Amazon. For those of you that didn't see it up in the description, I put it down in the comments as well so that you can get it. Before I let you go, Andy, do you have any last words you want to tell us about Moonshine Mesa and why people should get it and read it today?
Well, I hope they enjoy it. One of the other things that I really like doing in all of the novels I write is I enjoy reading something with sense of humor, and so I like to put that in there. And one of the ways that works really well for me is sometimes it's generational stuff. It's when the older generation is communicating with the younger generation, or miscommunicating, I could say, and that leads to a lot of opportunities for things that I think are really funny. So anyway, I try to interject.
Andy, it looks like you froze. Looks like you froze right there at the end. So you like to interject some humor into it. Did you say anything after that?
High adventure and don't like, and I don't include a bunch of graphic violence. It's meant to be exciting and thrilling and fun, and hopefully funny in several places throughout.
I love it. Well, get your copy of Moonshine Mesa today for free. You'll be glad you did. They're all a lot of fun to read. Andy, thanks so much for spending some time with us here on the show today.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Take care of yourself.